What's up, Brittany? Are you just waiting? Hmm. Thursday nights have been random. I'm not sure what I'm doing with Thursday nights. Trying to figure it out. So, what nights are gonna go live or not go live or stuff like that. So, I'm like getting getting close to not doing Thursdays and just keeping them Mondays. I don't know. Still trying to figure out schedule wise. There's just a lot of stuff that's been going on and a lot of stuff trying to work on. And just that's why I cut them back. I used to do 9 to 11. I got tired of that just because I wake up at 4 a.m. every day. So I was like, I'll kind of like pull back. So I'm not sure what we're doing with him yet, but a little bit get used to it. Whoa, that's like a grid of 6 people. What did I do?
What?
I do not know what I did. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. I don't know how I did a six. Oh, here we go.
Oh, there I am.
There's a panel on.
Okay.
What's up?
Oh, just hanging out, supposedly with COVID.
Oh, there we go. Sweet. That works.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know we could do it like side by side like this without being like opposite, like with you being in the live versus like separate lives. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know how to do any of this, so you know how I am.
Well, it worked. It works. That's
I'm like,
awesome.
hey, Ben, how do I turn my phone on?
Oh. I know you asked me that question like what 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, well, I can't help you until you respond.
That's Lindsay in a nutshell. If I and like, but honestly, I suck at using that app, so
It's all good.
yeah.
It's hard to get used to, but
Yeah.
I think it's better than Slack because we can utilize it with more stuff. Slack's just kind of like bleh, I don't know. But
Yeah, it's a good app. I just get really overwhelmed with all of the notifications, so I'm just like,
yeah, I think
oh.
there's ways to be able to shut off different ones. Like you can have different notifications for different things, or you can set it where like you only get notified like if you get tagged or something like that. I don't know.
Mm.
It's been a while since I messed with it, so.
That's
But
what
yeah,
I need. That way, if anyone like really needs me, I'll know it. Because
right.
otherwise, it's just like, it's a lot. I love y'all. It's a lot.
It used to be worse. Like the app is a lot, but it used to be worse when we were all on WhatsApp because then literally it was just a constant stream, and for a while, yeah, it was just a constant stream. I remember I went like I went kind of I ghosted the group one time for I think it was like 5 days, and went back and there was like almost 1,000 messages. I was like, okay, yeah, it's a lot slower than what it used to be. It used to be insane
Well, that's good.
because in WhatsApp everybody would start voice memoing too, and it was just like awful.
I can't keep up. And then I feel guilty because I can't keep up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's like, we're all having like moments and like trying to share and have like validation and all this stuff. And I'm like, I gotta feed my kid. I can't do this. I gotta go to work. Like,
You're
yeah,
totally
it's a
fine.
lot.
You're totally fine. But yeah, no, y'all are good to drop some comments so we can both see anybody's comments. You guys are good to drop some comments. Just asking comments, questions, likes, concerns, thoughts about narcissism, about different things like that, abuse. So we're just hanging out for a little bit tonight. So a lot of times I normally go live on Thursdays, and the past couple weeks I've been kind of changing it up. Not really sure what I'm doing or what we're going to be doing with these. So throughout the week, we've been starting to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday live question and answers on YouTube, and that's been kind of cool. People actually go live and everything. Roller coaster, Doctor Strange and Thor. Hello. Yep, that is us.
Saving the world.
That is us. Hopefully the VA is going to have the new and improved logo to me tomorrow. So we'll see what it looks like. I'm excited.
That's fun.
Oh yeah, because you missed the logo design on Saturday. I think I showed people on Saturday whenever we had our
Yeah,
meeting.
I freaking woke up. So when I voted for the time for the meetings, I was in on Eastern time and I woke up and it was like 8 something. I was like, I have a meeting right now. And I was still in bed. And I was like, there's no way. Like part of me was like, hurry up, get up. You gotta get involved. And I was like, I'll just be staring at all of you like, what are you saying? So yeah, you'll have
It's
to
okay.
well, I'll see it
We
tomorrow.
we didn't have. I don't think we had everybody like. Not that everybody was like silent, but there's like a couple of people that didn't really like talk much. So,
Mm.
but I think Lisa recorded it, so check with her. I'm not sure where she posted
Oh,
the or how she's doing. I don't know.
yeah. I'll check it out. See what I missed.
Yeah, we can just give you the highlights. I mean, then I would say the next one's going to be more important because we'll be like finalizing stuff for Texas and stuff too. So, but
Okay.
but yeah, narcissistic
Cool.
abuse is the worst form of abuse that impacts you to the core. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is because it impacts like your emotions, your mentality. Like it impacts like so much more than, just physical. Not that physical is not, an awful form of abuse, but a lot of times it's harder for the wounds to heal because they're not as easy to be able to see and fix and patch up.
Well, and a lot of times, like because of the emotional abuse and everything that you're going through, and or physical abuse,
Hmm.
because it's all horrible, you have physical changes in your body. Like a lot of us
Yeah.
get the autoimmune issues, we get,
Hmm.
like just ongoing health problems that weren't there before. And so
Yeah.
it's all encompassing, like whole and your job, your relationship with your family, like everything is affected. There's not like one part of your life that's like
Right.
nothing.
Yeah, I know Bree definitely has some stuff that's affected her. I know my wife, she's had a lot of stuff that's like affected her, like health wise, that's taking a while just to recalibrate the body in one sense.
And being able to understand that that's what it is, because when I was in it, I was desperate to figure out what was like physically wrong with me, well, and mentally I was like, I'm broken
Hmm.
and useless. But I didn't realize that it was like that they were doing all of this stuff that was causing this. And I went
Right.
to like, I think I made a TikTok about it once. I should like share it, but it was like, I went to acupuncture, I went to therapy, I went to another kind of therapy, I went to the doctor, I got tests, like everything, because you're just like, something's wrong with me, and you're not realizing like outside forces. So just
Right. Are
being
causing it.
able to understand, and people don't talk about it as much as other parts of abuse.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a big aspect that's like missing, which is actually kind of funny because I was just mentioning to Bree tonight that I think she needs to niche down. And I think she's got a unique aspect that she could do that with some of the OCD and stuff that she has, and also being like a health coach
Yeah, that'd be really,
because
it's
she's already
needed.
she's already got that certification, so she could really, I think, capitalize on it. But
Maybe I'll
diagnosed
message
with
her.
CFS after my marriage to a narcissist, also have chronic pain since my early. What's CFS?
Hmm.
I'm not sure what CFS is. Did all those
Calculating.
things as well. It's the hardest thing I've ever gone through. Yeah, same things. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it's a lot. I think a lot of times. I think you made a good point, but I think a lot of times people don't really highlight a lot of the physical abuse because honestly, I was working on a section on the Clarity Challenge that actually talks to them about like anxiety and sleep and stuff like that. Okay, chronic fatigue syndrome. Yeah, that makes sense. And I was like trying to think through. I was like, I didn't have an immediate resource to be like, hey, like tell me about like the health stuff in that. And then I like started thumbing through a couple books, and I found some stuff in the one book that I've used, The Narcissist in Your Life by Julie Hall, and she had some stuff in there, but it was mainly going towards like CPTSD and like anxiety and stuff like that, but not necessarily like chemically what happens like in the body.
Hmm.
So there really is not a ton of stuff out there. I need to see if I don't know if Dr. Romani's book has stuff in it. I've got her book on the shelf, but I haven't really thumbed through it yet. But
Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't able to overcome mono when I got it because I was emotionally wrecked by my narcissist. Yeah. No, I mean it's a huge aspect. And I think there's a book I just ordered. I don't remember the title and I'm on my phone so I can't look. But there's a book I just ordered that talks about like the mind and the body. I just heard it on the Ed Milet show. So I was like super excited. I like got it and we'll see how it helps.
I wanted to say about like the mono thing is that, so like I was with my partner from the start of the pandemic until last like fall essentially, and I didn't ever get COVID when I was with them. And like when this person was like the mono thing, I was like, oh my gosh. The first time I got COVID, I was super, super sick. And I just like had this flash in my mind right now that was like, how much longer would that have gone on? Because they, even when you're sick as a dog, you're not getting any sleep. They're waking you up.
Mm-hmm.
They're not helping you. They're glaring at you because you're over there half dead in your bed and you're stressed out and all of this stuff. So like,
They're
yeah,
an
having to go
inconvenience for getting
through,
sick.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So
Yeah.
having to go through like a severe illness. I mean, and I was hospitalized twice for mysterious illnesses. And like, yeah, but trying to recover from that while your mental health is at zero, not fun.
Yeah. I have joke around about COVID affecting me because it hit me for like 3 days and then realized I was a narcissist and it ran out of my body and it was like no more.
Call it.
It
Nope.
was it
I
was
know
like
this
this is
guy.
too toxic for me. I'm out.
Oh, that's a good one.
Uh, no, it was literally crazy because my because Kayla got sick and she got sick and she tested herself and it was nothing like she didn't test positive and so I got sick like literally right after so we're just kind of thinking like same thing like it wasn't that big a deal and then she got sick right after me so I was sick I was like sick and struggling for like 3 days like that was the max that it was but then she got sick like right after that those 3 days and lost her taste like right away. And we're like, oh crap. And so then I got tested and I had it. And so it was just like, oops, but yeah, no, that's my joke is as the narcissism was too toxic for COVID. So it ran away.
Oh man.
Hmm. But yeah, let's see. So your one video on gaslighting kind of blew up. I saw that. That was pretty cool.
On
So
YouTube, not on TikTok. It's so funny when you do cross posts and like last month I had a ton of luck on Instagram. Like my stuff went like several over a million and
it's crazy.
TikTok was like 2000, 2000, 2000. And then this month TikTok is doing a little better.
Hmm.
Instagram is just nothing. But like I've been working on my YouTube because you and Lee were like, work on your YouTube, work on your YouTube. And I'm like, okay, post, post, post. And then today I'm like, the gaslighting video on like YouTube.
Right.
It's
That's
I think it's
crazy.
at like 10,000, almost 10,000 now, which is huge for my YouTube.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, a bunch of people
you
like the
never know.
gaslighting video that I did the other day, and it was just kind of funny, and it was like literally like
Oh,
it was like such a real example.
yeah, exactly. It's exactly how that one, but then the one where you were like, here's how to how was it? I saw it today where you like do you
Oh
like
yeah,
turn on a blender or something? I
yeah.
was
See,
like,
I was like, here's how to talk to the narcissist, and like both of those literally like in the moment, I was like, oh, we should do this, and we just like did it. Like I told her what I was doing beforehand, so it wouldn't be like extra triggering, and she was okay with both of them. But like literally, it was just yeah, true story, bro. Right?
yeah, it was funny because like obviously it's a blender, and so I'm like watching it like it's a blender, but like it's so real, so real.
Hmm.
Like my
Yeah.
chest got tight. I was like, I have to scroll. I like have to keep watching, but like,
I kind of felt bad with that one because I forgot to put trigger warning on that one. But I was like, oops. So I gray rock, but I still get super emotional every time he texts. It throws off my day. Advice. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of times when well, okay, I always put a disclaimer whenever I talk about gray rocking. I tell people gray rocking works 50% of the time. The other time it gets abusive even more. So please be careful with gray rocking, period. If anybody's listening or watching this gray rocking, just be careful. Your narcissist better than we do. So just try to make sure that you're careful that you're not accelerating abuse. As far as like getting that emotional every time he texts, like yeah, there's definitely a huge aspect of like anxiety that all of a sudden spikes up whenever that the toxic person texts you. One of the things that I would do is like try to be able to limit your exposure to that, whether that's turning off your notifications, whether that's silencing, or whether that's even noticing, hey, the phone just went off and it's that person. Let me even set a timer for 5 minutes before I actually respond or before I even read the text. Sometimes people need like a gap or like a break. If you're seeing yourself like lock up, like tense up and like lock up whenever that is, then start developing habits and practices that are going to reground you inside your body with what's actually going on. So that could be as simple as like 5 4 3 2 1 of like five things you see of like the color blue, of like so many things you hear, see, taste, touch. Like you can go through all the senses. And a lot of times when people do that, I've done it even on Zoom calls with people, like when they're talking about something and they're tensing up. And it's really cool because all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, like I'm not, because people have a hard time doing like a functional motor like observation thing, and it helps break through that anxiety aspect.
mm-hmm.
So I am the narcissist. She is not. So people are jumping on here. I think my thing still says self-aware narcissist chats because that's what I always have it
Oh,
labeled
hi, not
On
me.
Thursday. So, but yeah, no, I'm in therapy. So I've been in therapy now going on a little bit over 2 years. So I went to EMDR therapy for about 6 months, and then went to regular therapy, like talk therapy. Been doing that for going on 19 months now. And that's been every week for 19 months. So even though we're both in therapy, myself and Lee, it's still kind of funny because I can still kind of lord it over him that technically I've been in therapy. I've been in more therapy sessions than he has because he's been 4 years, but the majority of that time was for once a month. I think now he's actually doing every other week because his therapist is like, we should meet more. But my therapist actually recommended 3 weeks ago. She was like, maybe we should consider meeting every other week. And then we had a lot of stuff to talk about the following week. So I think it kind of
That's
freaked me
always
out
how it
personally.
goes.
So EMDR I thought was really effective to clear past trauma, that part of it that I didn't even know was there. So I definitely am a big fan, and my wife has done a lot of EMDR. I actually got her into it because EMDR was the first thing that I did, and it helped a lot for her. So think of like EMDR as being, or if you're around, you can find another one called EMI. EMI is actually, from what I've heard, some of it's from my therapist, from other people. EMI is even faster. It's like the same concept, but a lot of times what I've heard it is it helps handle the process even faster. EMDR dives back into your mind and into your brain, and what I would say is kind of like unlocks different sections that you didn't know was there, and helps you process and deal with a lot of the trauma there to make it less impactful or like less like sidelining. And so there's a lot of different things that go into it, a lot of different people that have processed like huge trauma through it. I didn't have this necessarily like huge trauma, and like going into it I was like, why do I even need this? Like, I thought the person was like crazy. It took until like the fourth session before we had like a breakthrough with EMDR, and then I was like, holy crap, like this stuff works. I don't even know how we like got here. But I thought it was like super helpful, and it opened up. So that I would say helped me process some past trauma, some of past emotional trauma and stuff like that. But like the therapist that I've been working with now has definitely helped me process everything else. So regular therapy has definitely been huge, but the EMDR definitely, I would say, keyed it up really well for me personally. Have you ever done EMDR? EMDR? Ever heard of it or anything?
I haven't. It's definitely been recommended to me by a lot of people, but like from what I've heard, it is a better option quite often for like severe trauma survivors versus like talk therapy, because like you're just like talking versus EMDR where it's like let's get down to it.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. Can't
Yeah, EMDR is
attest
really
to
good.
that.
I know there's a lot of people. I saw Chris in here earlier. I think she might have done EMDR, or maybe it was someone else. I know my wife has done it. I think a couple other people have done it. Megan, you're around me. Just contact me. I'll hook you up. There's Chris. Have you done EMDR? And then Megan, like just contact me. I'll hook you up because there's a couple. There's one that's here local, so you could actually use them over here. May I ask, why did you decide to go? Yeah, good question. So for me, like getting to therapy was getting to the place of getting pissed off that the cycles that I was in wasn't going to change. And I realized that no matter what I was going to do, like the same cycles of going from person to person, like thought to thought, like, the next best thing, it wasn't actually changing. I got to the place like one time in my life. What's up, Gina? I got to my place one time in my life where I actually thought I was cursed. And I was like, maybe this is just my plight in life. I'm just gonna go through these cycles like every so many years or whatever, and just kind of like resigning myself to, I guess this is just what it is. So there's a big aspect that like some people are like, when you found out, that you were a narcissist and you had traits, and then you figured all this out, like when you found out that stuff, like was it like awful? And I'm like, no, like it was actually, I was glad in one sense that I was able to finally put a name to it and actually know like what the hell I was dealing with, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say check out one of my YouTube videos. So you can look at Raw Motivations on YouTube. Check out on there. I have a YouTube video called Self Aware Narcissist, and I kind of walk through a little bit of everything that happens. But for me, I didn't have a light bulb moment. I didn't have a rock bottom, and I didn't have, something that just magically made me change, like a catalyst. A lot of times I refer to not having a light bulb moment. I didn't have a switch flip on. I had more of like a dimmer switch, and it kind of slowly over time. I think for me, I learned a lot of attributes and a lot of things about narcissism without ever knowing about narcissism towards the end. How did you learn about narcissism?
Um, like I mentioned earlier, when I was like constantly thinking something was wrong with me and like trying to seek out ways to like make myself better, like reading all the self-help books and like I was learning about attachment style and all this stuff. And then I
Hmm.
can't remember what I Googled, but I mean, I Googled like over and over and over, like, is my partner a narcissist? But I would always like be like, because we've talked about the DSM-5, and I'm
Hmm.
looking at it like this can't, like, no, that doesn't quite make sense, because there is a lot more to like what the DSM-5 says. Like, each thing
Right.
has, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? But I then
You
found
could take each
trauma
nine
bond.
traits of the narcissist. You could take like all nine traits of NPD, and you could probably extrapolate, at least 3 to 5 other traits underneath each one.
Exactly. I don't think that it's clear enough for survivors of narcissistic abuse to be able to figure it out, because we're over here like still in a trauma bond, like that's not my partner, when it really
Hmm.
is. But I found trauma bond, and there was like a side by side of like, is it love or trauma bond? And the trauma bond list, I was like, it's all of those. And the love list, it was none of them. And I immediately was like, there, like I couldn't deny that it was anything else. It was so clear. And then
Hmm.
because I started looking into trauma bonds, narcissism started coming out more and more and more. And it was just like, this is very clear now. It all made sense. And I found Lee. I
Hmm.
found Lee and Lisa Sunny, and like I say this all the time, but the two of them, like their content, helped me get to where I am today.
Yeah. No, absolutely. They're awesome at what they do. You want to say hi? Come
Yeah.
say hi. You said you were going to say hi. Oh my gosh, just come here. Just say hi. You can say hi.
Hi.
Anyways, Kayla just wanted to pop in and say hi really quick. So, if we're super excited, we actually have recorded a couple episodes. So we have coming up September, is it 5th?
Yeah, it's Monday.
Monday. Yeah, so Monday coming up. If you guys don't follow, go ahead and check it out. We're already on podcast, so you can find us. It's not on my channel. It's a completely different channel. So it's called Trauma, Drama, and Life is our podcast that we're doing. So first episode drops on Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So we're excited about it. You get to hear us ramble for a little bit, but we've also got a couple episodes already coming out. I'm gonna see about dropping some links, and you can always like DM as far as like different topics that you want to hear as well. Yeah, it's on Spotify and Apple. You can find it already. It's already up. There's like a little tiny thing just to be able to have it there so people can see
Yeah. And there's humor in there too.
some humor. Yeah, we actually laughed some, but yeah, no, we're super excited about it. So yeah,
Right.
cool. Thanks. Okay, any fun. So I would say I'd engage more with like cognitive empathy now. It's not necessarily something that's innate or like that I feel on like a day-to-day basis. So
Interesting.
what?
I just like, it's for me as a survivor, it's like I find it so interesting when you or Lee answer things like that like you always wish that your partner would have done. And so my brain is just like, how are, and like then when I see Kayla with you, I'm like, how's this happen? How's this work? It's just like so curious to me, because and I cannot imagine my
Mhm.
abuser ever going to therapy and figuring it out and doing what you said about like realizing that cycle that you were in, or like the pattern. I don't remember exactly what you said. Like I
Yeah.
cannot wrap my mind around that this is possible
Hmm.
for narcissists, just based on my experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it totally makes sense because if they're unwilling to be honest, if they're unwilling to acknowledge who they are, then it is impossible. There's not really a baseline that can happen. And It's hard because there's a lot of talk out there. I think I did a video just a little bit ago about that along the lines of a lot of people say like narcissists are incapable of change, and I agree to the point that they're incapable of change if they're not willing to be honest with themselves. But the thing is, I mean, that's even why like a lot of therapists don't like working with narcissists, because they are taught to work with the person in the room, and you don't know who you're working with. Are you working with the narcissist, or are you working with the mask? Are you working with the man, or are you working with the monster? Like, it's hard to know which one is actually there.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe you won't know, but differentiating between a narc and a sociopath. Any advice? So I don't have a lot of information with this, so if I say it wrong, don't come at me. But what I've seen before is the idea that it's all on a scale. So you have like narcissism, narcissistic traits. You have NPD, and then you would have like sociopath, and then you'd have like psychopaths. It's kind of like a scale. So basically, think of it this way: you can have a narcissist that's not going to be a psychopath, but if you have a psychopath, they're going to be a narcissist. So it kind of like adds to it, if you'd say. With sociopath, a lot of times you see more excitement to get a high off of another person's pain. And a lot of times getting into the sociopath and the psychopath, it's also like along the lines of being more thought out and scripted out. A lot of the stuff with narcissism is a defense mechanism and a lot of times reactionary. Give you like an idea, probably one of the examples I have recently that I like to explain because I feel like it helps a lot is a lot of times you have people like ask like, is the narcissist like purposely hurting me in different areas? Are they purposely doing this? And while there is a lot of times there also is a big aspect that a lot of times it is based on shame avoidance of like, I'd rather avoid shame. And if that means I'm going to hurt someone else, that's okay. It doesn't matter. So like my basic example is like, think of we're standing here, okay, and you're standing behind me. And as you look down the road, you can see a car that's traveling towards us at about like 60 miles an hour. And as the car starts getting a little bit closer, you start to see that on the front bumper of the car is labeled guilt and shame. So as that car gets closer, I'm starting to realize, hey, that car is getting close enough that it's actually going to impact me and expose the shame that I have, expose the guilt that I have, and actually be holding me accountable and responsible based on the impact that it's going to cause me. So as a result, I jump out of the way of the car and it runs over you. At the end of the day, what matters is that I wasn't impacted by the car. So I don't care if you got hurt. I don't care if you got run over, steamrolled, and destroyed. All I care about is at least I didn't get hit with shame and with guilt that's going to, impact me that way.
That was good.
The narcissist I dated enjoyed being mean to me to the point that he would publicly humiliate me. Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of times it's very true.
Hmm.
Let's see. What other questions we got? It's a little quiet in the question asking category.
No. Hmm. That's a good one.
But why is there so much shame and guilt? Like, where does that stem from? And so, I mean, the easiest way to say it is a lot of times it stems from either trauma, abuse, or you have overbearing parents, over controlling parents. That's like where narcissism comes from to begin with. But like a lot of times, like when you see that in narcissism, it's normally because it's so really shame stems from guilt. Okay, so there's a trigger that happens. Narcissist gets impacted with guilt. Guilt is the idea of, hey, I did something bad. Guilt quickly goes guilt goes really fast. Okay, like I use illustrations like sticking your hand in a pot of boiling water, you're going to jerk it out really quick. That's the emotional response of I have to get past guilt really quick. The problem is guilt activates shame. So guilt is saying I did something bad. Shame is saying I am bad. The problem is I am bad goes directly against the mask that I've created that says I am good. So as a result, there's those two things that are going on there. I can't go to the aspect of like I am bad, so I have to go with the mask. I have to go with something that's going to make me feel okay. So a lot of times, like growing up, it'd be like the idea of them not having the emotional support or the emotional safety to be able to process that emotion, to actually be able to realize like, hey, that guilt doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It means I messed something up and I need to be able to change for that. So it becomes a very avoidant kind of personality. Any advice for going and staying no contact besides do it? I mean, the biggest thing with like going and staying no contact is getting to the place where you block ghosts and you go no contact, and then you have to work on rewiring the story that you're believing so you don't go back. A lot of people asking about covert narcissists.
Really quick about going no contact. I wanted to add that for me, it was not just blocking my abuser, it was blocking everybody who knows them. Because if I have someone who has contact with both of us or follows us both on Instagram or something, they can deliver information to me and vice versa. And I didn't want
Mm-hmm.
that. And I think that, like, I'm not healed. It's going to be a long journey, but I think that a lot of my healing progress has been because I've been so strict about my like no contact policy. It's just not worth. And a lot of people are like, well, what if it's
Mm-hmm.
family or what if it's like this friend? I'm like, they're not my friend. If they know what I'm talking about and they're still like, well, I just want to follow them on Instagram to see what they're up to. You're not my friend. Bye.
Right. Exactly. What's up, Bree?
Hey, Bree.
We got Bree in the house. We were actually just talking about you like 20 minutes ago. But if you guys don't follow Bree already, Abuse is Abuse. She's in the chat. But she's got a really great perspective too, and she does coaching as well. Hello. Um, I like missed a bunch of. Can I
Yeah, now
slide on
you
this?
you were like,
Oh,
oh,
I
it's
can't.
so quiet in here, and then we got 300 really awesome
Coverts.
questions.
Yeah, everybody's like covert, covert, a covert. Okay. All right. So, what do you want to hear about coverts? So, I mean, coverts are like overts. They're just hidden more. So I mean, now big aspect is okay. So, like with covert narcissism, you got your grandiose of like, hey, I'm gonna be the big person on campus, and like everybody's gonna like see me. Like overts are the one that people like, oh, like that's an asshole. It must be a narcissist. Like coverts are more the ones that are going to be, sometimes like feigned humility. They're going to be a little bit more shy. Sometimes they're going to be more like introverts. They're going to be the ones that dog whistle you. They're going to be the ones that, slowly make the snide remarks that slowly erode your character and your self-worth and your self-confidence and leave you feeling like you're stupid and you don't know anything, but they never really said that. That's the part that like gets really confusing and makes you feel like an idiot when you're trying to explain to someone like, hey, I'm getting abused, and they're like, they didn't say anything wrong, because a lot of it is also in tone and approach, like body language. That was something like my wife pointed out, like even a couple of weeks ago, like we had like a conversation. She was like, you didn't say anything, but it was just like how you were like standing, how you like your body language like towards me, and I was like, oh, like I didn't even know it. That's like one out of like a million different examples. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and I everything you said with like everything you were saying, I was like, yes, like that description of like then making you feel crazy without even doing it. I have made a lot of content about the covert abuse that I experienced, and every single time that I do it, the video blows up because it's usually like
Mm-hmm.
actual footage that my abuser took of me, and it's super controversial because people either immediately see it and they're like, "Oh my god, this happened to me," or they're like, "That's not abuse," because it's so often so subtle that the
Mm-hmm.
victim doesn't see it until they're out of it and they're like I had videos on my phone that I would watch, like I found it later and I would just like my birthday video and just be like, it's so obvious
Right.
now. But when you're in it, you don't see it. Nobody else is gonna
It's
see it
just
either unless
blueberries.
it's just blueberries. It's just this weirdo eating blueberries awkwardly. Like did you see the
Yeah,
one where I'm getting in the Jeep? I don't know if you saw that one.
I'm not.
You got like 2 million views. And what happened was I found two clips of me doing a handstand into a Jeep. They had that Jeep challenge thing. And the
Okay.
first time I put music over it, which people got pissed off. And I'm like, I'm not exactly trying to like put my abuser's voice obviously on the internet. And the
Right.
first time they're like laughing their ass off, like this super forced laugh. And I failed. And the
Mm-hmm.
second time they're like laughing just a tiny bit. And the second I make like sit up and I'm in the Jeep, they go, oh my God. And it's that tone change of like, I'm laughing at you, I'm mocking you. And a lot of people are like, you're laughing too. They're just laughing. It's that
Mm-hmm.
tone change that you only understand when you have felt that. Because it's devaluation. It's like, you didn't even do
Right.
anything cool. I didn't. But like,
Right.
that's not the point, you know?
Right. Right. It's that slight little comment to try to make you feel like what you did was worthless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's very true. Yeah, I think covert. So yeah, I would identify as being a covert. So I was more overt in the workplace environment. So like I would just like tell it to your face. Like even even my last job with Amazon, it was actually kind of funny. I had one guy that I was like working with trying to get like his rate up, and he was like a really high performer, and then he like stopped kind of thing, and he was just having a bad attitude, and he like looked at me and he was like, I'm trying the best I can. I just looked back at him and I was like, bullshit. And I got called to HR and everything. But like, like in work, I was much more overt, especially when I worked for Chick-fil-A because I did that for 10 years and I was a boss at it. Like nobody could do stuff better than me because I had done so much with the company. Like I got sent around to stores to fix stores, there's stuff like that. So like that didn't help like the narcissism at all, but there's a big aspect like in the workplace environment that I would steamroll over people. And part of it also, I would say, made me more covert at times because then I realized like how I want to get my idea across only works so far when I steamroll over them. But it works really well if I get them to buy in the why, which is a good thing. But sometimes I get a little manipulative too when you try to, pit people against an idea or you try to make sure everybody's on your side before you launch an idea. Stuff like that can be a little more toxic. It's like they compliment you and devalue you in the same sentence. Yes, no, I mean that's very true, and I mean you have to admit, like word language and lingo, you have to be kind of talented to be able to do that because it's not the easiest to be able to like say like something like positive and the other person walks away like deflated. But a lot of times you have narcissists do that.
Mm.
I'm not saying it's a good thing.
Yeah. we're we're not praising it. We're not gonna
Right.
lift that one up. It is true though, because like I have this like competing idea that like I like my abuser, like looking back, I'm like, oh man, like they're not that smart. Like they're really not that smart. But then to be able to, like when you were saying how it's like it's a lot of time, like sometimes it's thought out, like I'm gonna do this to hurt this person, but a lot of times it's that defense mechanism that's like last minute. But like your brains fascinate me so much because to be able to be that clever, that quick, that aware of like the tool belts that you all have that we all know, or like,
Hmm.
are they all the same? Because and then it's so successful. And then if you're covert, nobody knows it, and
Right.
it's amazing. Like again, we're not praising it, but like you're right.
Right.
Like you have to be pretty freaking clever to be able to do all that.
Yeah, and it's very much so
It's
like
a
in the
skill
in the
set that
moment.
isn't very nice.
Yeah, that isn't very nice.
Yeah.
I got a very high compliment today. Bree complimented me today. She said I was a nice narcissist. But yeah, no, I
That's
mean a lot of
awesome.
times,
You are
a lot of
nice.
times it's very like reactionary, and so like that's the thing that's like hard for some people to like even like see it. So my therapist was asking me about this the other day. She was like, "When did you start realizing that you could manipulate people?" And I was like, "As far as like lying, like early on, because I knew." I grew up in like a stricter household and stuff like that, but I got to the place where I knew that how my parents were perceiving me and how my parents were watching me in communication and in a lying aspect. I was very perceptive like growing up. So side notes, like my dad was a pastor, we were part of a church, all that kind of stuff. They would never really tell me or involve me with like the church drama and stuff like that. But whenever it got big enough that they were like, hey, we should probably loop him in, they'd be like, hey, we wanted to tell you. And I'd be like, oh, about this, and this. And they were like, how did you know? And I'd be like, yeah, I already figured it out because I could tell who talked to who, like everything like that. I was like very observant. But like what I learned like early on was like the idea of like lying would be the aspect of I always made it come across like I was a bad liar. So like early on, like I was a bad liar, but then I realized, hey, they always see like my guilty face. I start smiling, and so then they always, up until like late 20s, like almost like early 30s, like they would still like swear to you like, oh yeah, he's an awful liar. Like we can always tell me he's lying. So I use that to my benefit, and like 90% of my lies I'd get caught in, and then the 10% I didn't want to, I just lie with a straight face, and they never have a clue. And so like it was like early on of like realizing like, hey, if I want to get what I want, or if I want to do what I want, I need to tweak what I'm doing in a certain way to make sure I get that.
Do you still lie like a
Some
lot or a little or none?
I say a little. I was gonna say no. Like I don't with my wife, and I don't like with people. But like, ironically, this is actually kind of hilarious. So we went. So yes, yeah, yesterday. So yesterday was our anniversary, and so we went out to eat, and we were like, what do we want to do? So we restaurant hopped. So it's kind of cool. So like we went to three different restaurants for like a appetizer, main, and then a dessert. So we went to California Pizza Kitchen, and they sat us outside, and they sat us outside and they forgot about us. And so it was like really annoying. Like I was getting a little like pissed, that kind of stuff. And so like they went back and forth. Like the hostess came out and was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Like we screwed up." And in my mind, I'm like, you mean you screwed up because you sat us out here? So like obviously like. And then the waiter came out and they weren't like super happy. Like they were just weren't nice. Like we were just like the appetizer and the dessert from the other two places was way more amazing. They got better tips than the rest of them. But anyways, so like we're like sitting there and they come and they bring out our food, and Kayla looks at her salad and it's got two spoons in the bowl, like not forks, just spoons. And she was like, "Can I get a fork?" And the person was like, "Oh, like yeah, let me go get a fork." And so when the waiter walked away, we looked down, and on the other side of our glasses, by the edge of the table, is like the fork, spoon, and knife, like rolled up in like a there's like a brown napkin, and it blended in with the outside table, and. And she was like, "Oh gosh," she was like, "I didn't see that there." And I was like, "It's okay." And I grabbed it and I stuck it under my leg. So when they came back out, then they'd be like, we wouldn't look like idiots for asking for a fork when there's a fork right in front of us, thinking that the same person, that the girl that she was like, "Hey, can I get a fork?" And she just said okay and walked away, thinking that the same person was going to come out bringing a fork. But it wasn't. It was the waiter, because it wasn't it was a different person. So it was our actual waiter that came out, and he walked out and he was like, "Yeah, I heard you needed a fork." And then he like stopped because he realized there's no forks on the table, and he's like, "That's weird. Like, you guys don't have forks?" And I was like, "No, the hostess never gave us any." and so at that point, like, I didn't want to admit I have like a fork underneath my leg, like I'm hiding because we don't look like idiots that we asked for forks that are sitting right in front of us. So then he like walked back in and like got a fork, and I think he was like scratching his head thinking like he might have saw a fork there before. And then I left it like hidden under the table when we left. But yeah.
I was gonna ask. I was like, so where did the fork end up? Like,
So there's actually, because like Kayla was wondering that too. So there's actually like the table, and then it had like a little lip underneath. So I took the forks and I like shoved them underneath the lip. So I'm like, I'll go back and check in a month and see if they're still there.
oh, that's hilarious.
But anyways, that's a little bit different, and that was done with wife's permission. It wasn't like I was lying to her. So,
Yeah, that was just like a little silly,
but
goofy
that's like
time.
the automatic, and that's like the automatic. So like in a relationship, how that would happen is being called out for something. It's automatic, like boom, like this just happened, and then you start making the plan. So it's like when you first asked, like it was just like an immediate. It was like, no, they never gave us any. And then it's like, okay, now what do I do with the fork? And that's what
Mhm.
happens in a relationship with a narcissist. It's immediate. Like they'll lie a lot of times. It's immediate, and this is why you have a lot of dumb narcissists where they'll lie immediately, and then they realize like the lie I just told I'm stuck with, like it doesn't match up. Like I had one today that one of the examples was that he was at the hospital because he was getting a heart stent put in, and then he shows up to the house like later, like all fine and everything. I'm like, no, you weren't. Like it's like an overnight surgery kind of thing. But anyways, like they'll lie about like so many things. They'll just be like immediate. But then once it's immediate, then it's like, okay, now I have to actually figure out how to back it up.
Yeah.
Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, mine. So I don't know how often mine lied to me because like they're a horrible liar. And so I would just be like, that's not true. But watching them lie to the whole entire world, like parents, sibling, bosses, all, and just like I don't like to lie. Like when I was
Mm-hmm.
younger, I like we all kind of like lie to our parents, but then I just was like, shit, I can't keep track of this. I don't like it. I'm uncomfortable. And like if you ask me something, I'm gonna tell you, or I'll say like, hey, I don't feel comfortable talking about this. Like we're on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, right? But
Right.
like just like how do you keep track of all these things and just but the weird thing is, and this is for like everyone who's like a survivor, because we all have these moments where I'm like, I'm dumb, is like watching how dishonest this person was with everyone else, but then like the cognitive dissonance where your brain's like, they surely aren't a liar, they surely aren't like whatever, and you're just like convincing yourself, well, they're just lying to them because like, you know what I mean, you just
Right. Yeah.
figure out how to make it okay when it's really not okay.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think one thing that people struggle with, and I was talking to somebody today on a one-on-one, is like looking at the past and like beating yourself up about the past. And and there's two things I'd say about that. And I talked to this one person about it today, and I was like, what's the thing that's like going through your mind? And a lot of times it's like you look back at the past and you're like, I was stupid for not seeing it. I was dumb for not allowing it to go on for so long. I was an idiot for all this. And what I said to her first, I was like, okay, like those are the three things you just said. Now take out the actions, and what have you actually told yourself? That I'm stupid, that I'm dumb, that I'm an idiot. So that's like the negative self-talk that like needs to be recalibrated first off. Of like if you have a negative look at life, if you have a negative self-talk, that's going to impact the entirety of your healing, of your journey, of everything. And it's going to make it a lot harder to dig yourself out of the mud when you're putting mud back on top of yourself. And then the other
Mhm.
thing, trying to be able to explain, was like the idea of you can't judge yourself in the past by knowledge you have in the present. And a lot of times people think they can do this, but they don't really connect it with what's actually going on. Like so for instance, like a doctor today can't look back at themselves in high school and be like, man, I was stupid because I didn't know all the stuff I know today. Like we wouldn't say that. We'd be like, that's silly. But that's what people do getting out of narcissistic abuse. They look back at times where now they see the red flags and they're like, oh my gosh, I was stupid for not seeing the red flag. You didn't have the education to see the red flag. Like you had on rose-colored sunglasses walking through a sea of flags that you thought was a carnival, but it was actually just red flags. And you didn't realize it until you were enlightened enough and you had the education to take off the glasses and realize, oh crap, like this is shitty. We need to get out.
Yep. And I think it's really helpful when you do get away and you start to heal, and it's only like, yeah, their voice is like in the background, and it comes up sometimes in my head, but like when it's only you, so like you said, like retraining your brain to like stop throwing more mud on. So it's a lot easier for me to be like, okay, Lindsay, give yourself some grace. Like everything you just said, when you don't have that person
Mm-hmm.
reinforcing that you're dumb, that you can't do anything without them, that all of that stuff. No one will ever love you. Like once you get rid of that active
Right,
voice in your head, it's just you being like, okay, no, someone will
right.
love me. Someone will treat me
Yeah.
right. All of that stuff.
And it's true. I had someone the other day on a podcast that I was listening to that said this exact thing, is like the new story that you're telling yourself, the story that's based in truth, isn't going to feel real for the first little bit. It's going to feel different. It's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward because it's not something you're used to. But that's the whole point, is you need to rewire how you're thinking, how you're processing stuff, because the what you're used to was toxic. And so like having to rewire that is going to go through a time of like, this is uncomfortable. Like I'm telling myself to take care of myself, or to love myself, or to be there, or to have a calm nervous system, or like you name it. Like I'm telling myself a lot of different things that I'm actually have never done before. It's gonna feel weird. It's gonna feel odd. I want to address. I saw a comment. I've seen it like 3 times, and I don't know if they're still in here. Hopefully they are. But they asked like, how can I stay with a narcissist and keep like my mental health? And what I would tell you is, if you're staying with a narcissist and you know they're a narcissist and they're coming across like a narcissist, acts like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, is probably a duck. If you're with a person who's a narcissist, there's not a way to be able to stay and keep your mental health, because they will rob you of that every single time. And the fact that you want to stay with someone that you're saying is a narcissist also means that you're stuck on a trauma bond, and you're hoping and you're waiting for potential, and you're getting confused by cognitive dissonance, thinking maybe this person will change, maybe this person will get together, maybe this person will get it together and figure out, maybe this person will feel my pain. You're going after a pipe dream. It's not going to happen.
I agree.
So I wanted to like attack that one because I saw that one earlier.
Good one.
All right, you talk. I've talked too much.
You talk. I don't know what to say. Your answers are really good. And actually, not to be like, oh, like, but the people are here for you. You're the narcissist. I'm just like the background. What is it called?
Oh
The
my gosh.
backup dancer. Uh, Save
Oh, that's
yourself, not the
hilarious.
marriage. Yes,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly. What is that, Carrie? I think I just saw Carrie pop in. What's up, Carrie? I think I saw her pop in. If you guys don't follow already, Carrie McAvoy. Um,
Oh, is
she
Carrie in
yeah,
here? Oh,
she's
hi,
here.
Carrie.
Yeah,
There she
Carrie
is.
McAvoy, PhD. She just left a comment. If you guys don't follow her already, follow her. She's got I've got the mind of the narcissist. She's got the smarts. She's got all the brains about all this stuff. She makes more sense. So when I get confused, I ask her what definitions mean and all that kind of stuff, and she helps clear it up. But
I do that too. Or if I don't know an answer to something, I'm like, can this be? And she's always got a good answer.
I think I've literally asked her probably like 5 times of like, tell me about narcissism and codependency because I know it doesn't work together. And every time she explains it, and I'm like, I understand it. And then the next person asks me, and I'm like, I forgot. What? And there's Heather, Heather Coleman Voss. So if you guys don't follow, there's Heather Coleman Voss. We're just shouting out everybody. Does everybody?
Yep. Anybody else?
It said invite Carrie in. I don't know. Does Carrie, Bree, and Heather want to come and say hi? I think I can change it so that everybody
Come
can
on
come and
in.
say hi.
We've got like a good fraction of Narc Avengers in here. Shall we talk about Texas then?
Yeah, I wonder. Can they request? Let me see. There you go. There's spots for 4 of y'all.
We want Carrie. Oh, she can't tonight.
Aw. It's okay. We'll plan it. We'll plan it sometime. It's all gooch. All right, let's see. How do I switch back? There we go. All right, so yeah, let's talk about Texas, shall we? So like if you guys want to be able to come and see us and be able to talk to us person, so we actually have coming up October 15th in Austin, Texas. In bed is not an excuse, so no, settle down. So we're
Wake up.
actually going to be in Austin, Texas, October 15th. We're super excited. It's going to be an all-day event that's going on. So there's going to be 3 main things that are happening. The first one is going to be in-person one-on-ones, which this girl over here got the first one already scheduled, so it's pretty cool. But you'll be able to meet and be able to talk to 7 of the creators that are going to be there in-person one-on-one, and you can be able to do that, and that's really cool. And then there's a second thing that's going to be exclusive question and answer time, where you're going to have a panel of 10 of us. 10 out of the 16 Narc Avengers are going to be there answering question. It's a limited event for the question and answer time. And then coming up after that is going to be the 3-hour event that is the meet and greet. Show up, be able to interact, talk, go through all that kind of stuff. And then we'll talk at the very end, not answer questions, but we will like kind of speak to everybody. And I think we're going to have a couple of videos of a couple of the Narc Avengers that aren't going to be there. But that's coming up October 15th. If you want to get tickets to be able to, 1, know where the address is, because that'd be helpful, and then 2, be able to set it up so that you can meet with one of us, or you can be part of the question and answer time. Go to narcavengers.com and be able to check it out. We got a Texas tab there that you can go on and you can schedule and book with any of us there. And it also has another tab there called Toronto, because that's coming up November 19th. So be able to check that out. So myself is going to be there. We got Lindsay that's going to be there. We've got Bree that's going to be there. We got Carrie that's going to be there, and a bunch of other people. So those are the people that are here currently.
You're talking Texas, right? Because I'm not
Texas.
going to Toronto.
I'm
I'm
not
gonna be
going to
in
Toronto.
Mexico.
I'm not going to Toronto either. So yeah, no, I was just
Okay.
saying like who is all here for Texas. So but yeah, so we're super excited about it. It's really cool. So
Yeah.
I'll just throw it out since I'll throw it out real quick since we're in announcements. So in announcements, so the other thing also is we have September 24th. Why am I blanking on that? September 24th, we're going to have an in-person event in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and that's myself and Lee Hammock, Mental Healness. We're going to be doing a 4-hour workshop. It's not a meet and greet; it's a 4-hour workshop trying to help people heal from narcissistic abuse. So we'd love to be able to have you come out there. I think we have 12 spots left because seating's limited with the location that we're using. So that's coming up September 24th. You can find the link in my bio or in his bio. And then also, if you haven't had a chance to download the Narc app, we'd love to have you check it out. Mainly too because I'm excited because I just made a new website for it, so it looks a little bit more clear. But all you have to do is go to narcapp.com, NARCAPP, narcapp.com, and you can be able to see a little bit what's going on with the app and everything. But it's a community of like-minded people that are trying to help heal, grow, and change. We've got courses on there, track your no contact, be able to schedule with other different coaches and people on there as well. We've got weekly lives, also monthly coaching. The one coming up this coming Monday is actually going to be with Lisa Sunny. So if you haven't had a chance to be able to sign up underneath the app, go into the premium supporter and sign up for the coaching, because that's going to be coming up. Lisa's going to be presenting to us coming this Monday. So that's all my announcements.
Awesome. All really good things.
Yeah, we're super excited about it. Oh, you want in, Bree? Yeah, that's fine. You still, I think Bree, you still have the link. If not, we'll connect it. But yeah, no, I'm excited about it. So it'll be good.
Lindsay, I love your
Um,
shirt. Thrift shop.
this is my American Eagle, so I can get all the immature comments.
Oh
This has been a
yeah.
while though. It's been a while.
I
That
remember
one
that.
person
I
was
remember that
like, "A
fiasco.
real man doesn't wear American." The best thing, and I should have done a follow up video about it. But the best thing about that whole thing, like the one I did the one video, and the guy was like, "A real man doesn't wear American Eagle." Best thing about it is true narcissistic form. My shirt was gaslighting him because it wasn't an American Eagle shirt. It actually had the little symbol. It was a Hollister shirt, and so it was like quite funny to me.
That's awesome.
Um, I like missed a bunch of comments when I was announcing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what all we missed.
Um,
Oof. Can you address isolation tactics? I don't know if you want to talk about that.
yeah, I think I actually just recorded a video on that the other day for YouTube. There's a lot more stuff that I have on YouTube, just FYI. So for everybody that was in the chat earlier being like, coverts, 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 go look on my YouTube channel. Because I know off the top of my head, I at least have 5, if not 6 or 7 YouTube videos on why am I on YouTube? Duh. On YouTube under Raw Motivations about like covert narcissism. So, what was the thing? Oh yeah, isolation. Yeah, narcissists love to be able to isolate you. That way, they can use you for the full supply. Like if I isolate you, then you have to keep coming back to me for your validation, for your self worth. And I mean, basically, it's like I don't know. It's like a home garden. Like I get to keep my garden and get everything from it, and no one else gets to have it. So like I keep you isolated from everybody else. So I divide and conquer you from your family and your friends. I work on a small smear campaign with your close friends, so they start to realize that you're the crazy one. And at the same time, I use either text messages, side comments, or things that other people have said to put doubt in your mind that the people that you have in your life are actually toxic, and I'm the best person in your life.
That was a little triggering. I'm like, stop talking about it. I don't want to remember this.
I was like, you brought it up.
I definitely noticed that. So, like, after I got out, I was looking back and I was like, well, why were those people allowed in my circle and those people weren't? It was the people who saw them for who they were like smear campaign. That person's jealous of you, jealous of her, like just immediately. And then
Mm-hmm.
I would be like, oh crap, I didn't realize. Thanks for looking out for me. And then the people who were allowed to hang out with me were the people who were like, oh my God, like they're so good. They love you so much. They love your son, blah, blah, blah. And like now looking back, like it's very obvious who's who because those
Right.
people would have been the bug in my ear saying, are you sure it's okay that they're doing this? I don't like the way they treat you. I don't like the way they look at you. I don't like the way they talk to you. So those people were
Mm-hmm.
booted
Right.
because obviously you don't want us getting away because someone else, obviously it is really hard to see the light when someone else is trying to, shine it for you. You have to kind of figure it out yourself, but like, yeah,
Right.
not fun.
And that's what like a lot of people ask me because there's one time in the relationship where I asked like, what is that? Random like little there's
Whack who gave you a flirt warm feeling too, man.
there's one time where I actually asked my wife, I was like, do you think I'm like a sociopath? You know, I was like, I don't know, like I don't have empathy. I don't feel like I connect. And we like went through the traits and stuff like that. And she was like, no, like I'm pretty sure like you're probably a narcissist. And I was like, no. And then I made sure to go to the people in our lives, the ones that I had already manufactured to have in our lives because well, some of them I was cheating on her with anyways. I went to those people and was like, hey, make sure you tell Kayla that I'm not a narcissist because like obviously I'm not, and they knew that. It is actually interesting because her and I were talking about it the other day, and I was searching for something on my phone, and like now with like the new updates and stuff, it'll like pull stuff off of like pictures, and it actually pulled up like a snap that I had on my phone from Kayla like couple like a year 2 years ago, whatever it was, like a while ago, and it actually said like in the snap when she was like, well, you'll be happy to know that so and so thinks you have traits but that you're not a narcissist. And that was one of the people that I told to make sure that like that's what they communicated to her.
Dang. Yeah.
There's a lot of that part of like our story that like gets a little, I guess you could say excessively crazy, and also gets a little like obviously triggering for her at times talking about. But like we were driving we were driving about like 2 weeks ago, and she was brought up kind of randomly, and she was like, it's like really crazy how much I put up with, and that I thought was like okay,
Hmm.
especially like how much it was manipulated, how much like the isolation part, but then how much it was like I don't know. I guess manipulation is the best way because some people know like bits and pieces of like my story. Like I was with a girl who had like BPD and narcissistic traits, and that was the fourth affair that I was a part of, and that was the person that like I identify the most of having a version of a trauma bond with. With the BPD person, and it was something that when it was brought to light and when it was confessed and when it was put out there, which originally when I put it out there, I thought that was going to be the catalyst that would make Kayla leave and I'd be like free and then I could go with that victim story. But like when it was like finally put out there, it was another calm down. It was another
You can tell when I get triggered.
it was another 10 months before the girl with BPD was actually cut out of my life. And that was something that a lot of times I don't talk about as much because like that wasn't just like she's on the other side of the phone. Like that was she's still at the same job that both of us worked at, and she still would be in like our friend groups, and she would still be over at the house with us. So like
Mm.
the enmeshment and like the crazy making that was there was insane as far as like the level that it went to and the level that Kayla not only put up with but at that time also like trying to find the right words but I can't find the right words, really like put up with, or even different things that happen that like she's incredibly strong and I don't even know how like she does half the stuff she does, but like there was times in that section where like that person would be in her house and like Kayla would comfort that person. Like that's how like crazy like flipped it was in a lot of different ways. There's a lot of stuff that narcissists really do confuse and make life very crazy. I'm done triggering you.
Yeah, it's again, well, like you'll say something and it's like I'll remember like these moments, of course that I
Hmm.
do talk about publicly, but it's like when you're not the one thinking of it and you hear something and then you're like, ah,
Right.
but it is again weird in my mind to hear you, and like obviously I consume a lot of your content, but like hearing you acknowledge and say I did this because of this, like your awareness is mind boggling, because like knowing how my abuser would explain their past and all that stuff is like this weird made up like fantasy world where I think they like really believe the things they say, like, and who knows what they would tell someone about me and
Hmm.
whatever, but like you're like, no, yeah, I did this, and it's just like it's crazy.
Well, it's also on the aspect that, like, in those moments, I had all those weird fantasy, crazy, like, ideas and thoughts that were there. But, like, some of it's also, like, 2020 looking back, but some of it's also, like, no, like, I think, so there's an aspect, so let's talk empathy for a second. So there's an aspect of everybody being like narcissists are devoid of empathy or they don't have empathy. I don't think that's true. I think maybe like 50%, but I think there's a lot more narcissists that have empathy out there. And the reason why I'm saying that is because there's moments you have to have, think of it this way, there's times where you have to have some level of empathy, at least cognitive empathy, in order to love bomb, control, and manipulate really well. Like if you don't have those, then you're just kind of like, whatever, you're an idiot. And people are like, wait, I'm like bawling my eyes out. That happens later on in the relationship, but early on, like love bombing stage, like no, like that would be a big red flag. But a lot of times when people think of like empathy, and I love how like the DSM-5 is written, where people normally skip over it. All they read is narcissists lack empathy. Does it say that in DSM-5? Yes. But then there's a little like, what is it, semicolon or whatever, and it continues to say is unwilling to identify with the feelings and needs of others. And so what that actually means, and when you extrapolate it the whole way out, what it means is, hey, I get into an argument with my wife. She's standing over there. She's sitting on the couch and she's crying her eyes out because of something that I did. Maybe she just caught me in a lie or maybe cheating, something like that. But she's just sitting over there and crying. I know in my mind, the logical, the nice, and the loving thing would be to go over, apologize, and to give her a hug, right? But the problem is, if I do that, if I go over and I give her a hug, if I do that, that means I'm validating her emotions. That means her emotions are valid. And then also what that means is when I'm validating her emotions, it means that the reason she's crying is also valid, which in turn means if she has those emotions and her reasoning behind that is valid, it means that I'm wrong. And ultimately that's what it comes down to, is like it's more painful for me to be able to say I'm wrong than it is to walk over there and give her a hug. So I would rather stick with the idea of like, no, I'm gonna sit over here, I'm gonna emotionally disconnect, I'm gonna put it in a box, I'm gonna walk away, I'm gonna say like, forget this, I can't handle this, and disengage from that whole conversation or leave, than I would actually deal and give any type of empathy, because of the fact that that would mean that I'd have to admit that I'm wrong.
Yep.
Caleb be the first one to say, like, in our marriage, like the majority, like first whatever, like 5, 6 years of the marriage, like I never said I was wrong. Like literally, it was something that it was like almost like hard to be able to say. Like it wouldn't come out. I think maybe the
Mm.
closest was maybe I was like less right. But I was never like wrong. Like it wasn't actually a thing. We've talked about sometime, either me and her, we need to either do a live or we need to record a video talking about time zones, because it's hilarious. We get into these like, there, it's great now because it's a great way to be able to show how a narcissist argues, because like I can argue back and forth, black and blue, about whether you're ahead or behind in time zone. And it's hilarious because she takes one side, I take the other side, and we just literally go around in circles. And now it's like a joke, and it's funny. And like if it ever comes up, she's just like, "Oh my gosh!" And like we'll talk about it some, and then just like kind of like shelve it. But it's one of those things that I want to do sometime, either on a podcast or on like a video, to have people like see, because like logically, it's like I can twist and I can manipulate the conversation, and at the end of the day, I'm still not wrong. That's the whole goal.
Yep.
That's why some people are like, how do I like prove that they're a narcissist, or how do I convince them they're a narcissist? And I'm like, when is the last time you convinced them of anything? And they're like, never. Then I'm like, why do you think it's going to change now? Like, stop wasting your time.
Yeah. I
Anyways,
definitely agree with
you feel like, let me take all the soapboxes. You need to take some.
I don't have a soapbox right now. None of these questions have given me like soapbox energy. That sounds bad. I don't care about anything you're saying. I'm the narcissist
I
now.
thought I was the narcissist, right? No, it's
I'm
funny. The
getting the
other
narc
the other night,
fleas.
Lee Lee and I do the Wednesday night lives, and the other night we were out for dinner, and I asked Kat to sub in for me, so she took my spot on the Wednesday night lives with Lee, and like I like logged in as we were like walking out of the restaurant, walking back, and I was like, watch this, and I like put in the chat, I was like, wait, Kat's the narcissist? I'm confused, and like he read it out loud, and she was like, wait, who said that? And it was kind of funny.
Oh man, you guys.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, nobody's hit on any of my soapbox things.
Well, what's one of your
What did I do on
soapboxes, and
my
we'll hit on it.
Instagram today? Um, mutual abuse.
Hmm.
Mutual abuse kind of gets me going, and
What would be the difference between mutual abuse versus reactive abuse?
well, mutual abuse would mean that we're both equally abusing each other and
Hmm.
that neither of us has any power over the other. We're just giving it to each other. We're both kind of just like, hey, we're doing this. And
Hmm.
reactive abuse is basically lashing out in response to the abuse that you're receiving. And there's a power imbalance. One of us has control, one of us has the power in the relationship and has
Hmm.
made like, it's never like you have the power one day and I have it the next day. I might do horrible toxic things back to you because I've been being abused for 2 years and now I'm losing my shit and I feel like I'm crazy, but
Hmm.
it's not mutual. I don't, and then like knowing that, like when people talk about me, see, now you got me on it. When people talk about mutual abuse and I
Hmm.
rewind in my head the moments that either one of us could say, like if I could say this was abusive on their part, this was abusive on my part, it's different because they can control their anger and like their like, let's talk like physical abuse
How they
around
switch
other
it.
people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But then all of a sudden they they have to do this thing to you. And I'm not going to say it because I don't want to trigger anyone. And they couldn't, like, they would make this excuse, like, oh, I just, in the moment, like, I was just so overwhelmed with emotion and I couldn't. But my brain goes, like, right now, I want to freak out and I'm enraged because you've been word salading me for 9 hours and I don't even know what this argument is about. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to break something. However, I'm not going to. So I'm going to pick up a soft pillow and hit the couch and yell, why are you like this?
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, well, you're abusive. You're the abusive one. You just admitted that you're crazy. And I'm like, this is a reaction to their abuse. And my brain was able to say, okay, what's going to not harm our property, this person's body, anyone else who might be around, but like they don't have the ability to think through this. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And like, sorry, I don't want to include you in that. I don't know, like, what
No,
you.
you're fine. You're
I'm
fine.
not talking about everyone because not everyone is like that. I'm not the type of person who's like, all narcissists are going to punch you in the face. Like, I'm not that kind of person. But like, that's my mutual abuse, reactive abuse. Like, what the hell? Like, two very different
Right.
scenarios and like brain processes.
Hmm. So like how would someone if you were giving advice to someone who's in the crap, like how would you help them understand what to look for to know if they're dealing with reactive abuse or mutual abuse?
So I got to a point, I think it was like at one point I realized, because it happened many, many times, of either
Hmm.
like I would react out by yelling, or like I said with the pillow, or I would break down and just be like crying, like in the movie where like something horrible happens and they're just, it's like that guttural cry, and then of course they walk away and leave me there. And each
Hmm.
time that either one of those things happened, all of a sudden they're calm, right? And so, and this is one of the things that we talk about a lot when we talk about reactive abuse, is like, you we're in this argument, and the moment that you have either broken down, like you're no longer engaging in like the dialogue with them, you're either broken down on the floor or you're screaming, then they're calm. And they're
Hmm.
just like, they're just, and that's when I was like, this is a thing. And so I started to real like pay attention to like, it was like I started to slow my brain down, because a lot of times, like, say we're in an
Right.
argument, I'm already triggered because, like, God, we're fighting again. And you're saying something to me, and I'm immediately going to react and I'm going to get into this. This is what we do. But
Hmm.
now I'm like, something's off here. So now I'm like, they're saying this, and I'm starting to slow it down. But like, you have to be able, like, you have to be able to slow it down in that moment and then not react, because
Right.
that's exactly what they want.
Hmm.
And it is also like, and I like to give this disclaimer too, it can also be dangerous if you've been reacting, and then now all of a sudden you're not reacting. If the person is violent, like, it
Hmm.
can be dangerous to change course. So you might want to like pretend to be a little bit like, whatever you have to do to
Right.
stay
You
safe,
have to be
obviously, is the
careful.
most important.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. What would be it's like with reactive abuse, how would you define it?
Like, how do you mean?
So like if I'm brand new to this and I'm like, what is reactive abuse? Like how would you define it so it makes sense as far as like am I abusive? Like am I like so like if someone's watching this and they're like, wait a second, like have I done reactive abuse? Does that make me a bad person? Like what does that actually entail? Like is that me just responding, in a crazy way? Is that me abusing them? Like what does that actually look like? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, and it's really hard because a lot of times it is abusive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say that the things that I did, like calling them names, yelling at them, I mean, hitting the bed with a pillow or whatever, like, it's toxic. It's
Mm-hmm.
horrible and ugly, and I never want to do that again.
Right.
Um, but it is a reaction to the abuse. It's like a lot of times I describe that like, I'm like, we're tigers, we're like wild animals, but we're nice, like like we're just chilling in our space, and all of a sudden here comes this person with a stick, and they just poke and poke and poke, and you're getting injured, and you're starting to get mad, and then they take your freaking baby tiger away from you, and like,
Mm-hmm.
they're doing like whatever they can. They're like, when is this tiger gonna bite my face off? And then you're
Mm-hmm.
gonna bite their face off because you've
Right.
just been pushed and pushed and pushed. Like, at the end of the day, we are not like, even people who, like, I know that I came into this relationship like pretty freaking level headed. We
Mm-hmm.
all are humans. with brains that can only take so much like psychological torture. I mean, a lot of the things that like abusers use are the things that they like the military when you go to like what's it called like SEER training, survival training, and they
Hmm.
fake capture you. They're doing those kinds of like psychological torture tactics because they're like, is this person going to break down?
Right.
Because that's how it works. That's how your brain just you
Hmm.
just explode because you can't take it anymore.
Yeah, I had someone put in here, they said when you can't handle the pain and insanity anymore and then lash out in response to being abused. I think that's a good way to put it too.
That was really good.
What
And
are
I
your
noticed like
thoughts
over
on
time,
reactive abuse being self-defense?
oh, so
Putting you on the spot.
I've never, I know, I've never physically touched my abuser in any way ever. So um, I never physically defended myself from them.
Hmm.
And a lot of times, and just like y'all, trigger warning because some of this stuff is like horrible, but like their main tactic with me was to like physically tackle me, shut the door like while I was in it, like whatever they
Right.
could do to keep me from leaving. And I never like I would struggle and try to get out, but I never was like like like
Right.
I couldn't like it's just not in me to do that. I think I mean if I was like being attacked by a stranger, I think that instinct would do that,
Hmm.
but I don't honestly know. I think that one really good example is with Gabby Petito
Hmm.
because she did with the reactive abuse from what I understand from the police video was that like she hit him and
Hmm.
she was reacting to the fact that he took her keys and phone and locked her out of her van that she paid for. And she was in the middle of nowhere. And technically, the police were like, well, you kind of assaulted him. Like,
Hmm.
he didn't, apparently, he
Because
didn't do
that's what it's
anything to
meant
her
to look
first,
like.
but like,
Reactive abuse is meant to look like
yes,
you're the crazy one. Hmm.
exactly. And it's horrible, horrible, horrible. But that police video is
Hmm.
should be the catalyst for first responders to say, oh shit, this is a very real, very dangerous thing because this girl could have been saved because she was reacting to
Hmm.
his treatment of her. And and again, like whatever that person said were their definition of reactive abuse, how
Hmm.
was Gabby not supposed to freak out being isolated in the middle of a desert with no phone, no keys, not able to get in her van? And this person
Hmm.
who's supposed to be the love of her life, her fiance or whatever he was, is the one delivering this horrible treatment to her.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
What did Bree say? I think it can be self defense even if it's not violent. It's like trying to shock the abuser. Oh, that was sent to me
If
as
it's that
well.
conscious, a lot of times it's not that conscious though, right? Like you're just like, well, a lot of times I also think of reactive abuse because you see it a lot of times with like silent treatment. Like a lot of times people like a lot of times like I guess when I'm thinking of reactive abuse, like reactive abuse is meant for you to react in an abusive way that makes you look crazy. And so 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to be yelling at you to get you to react. I'm going to be triggering you to get you to react. And so that's why
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times
Mm-hmm.
it's very like misleading and it's very confusing because like a silent treatment of me being silent for, 3 weeks on end, and then you finally like, slamming doors and screaming at me of like, why won't you just talk to me? Like that's to me when I think of that example, that's not self-defense. That's reacting to a trigger that I purposely put there for you to get mad at. So like that's why I think like maybe it has to just be in different contexts, of like maybe like
Mm-hmm.
say like Gabby Petito example, we can like say something along those lines or maybe another example. But like whenever I think of reactive abuse, I'm not thinking of I'm yelling at you, so you're yelling back. Like because even in those moments, if I'm doing that, I'm not just doing it just to yell at you. At that point, I'm also doing it because I know what buttons to push. That's why a lot of times, like you've seen some of the videos on TikTok and on social media of like the narcissist like saying stuff, and it's like they word salad a bunch out, and then it's like done, and then there's like a pause, and then they word salad more. It doesn't stop. The reason why it doesn't stop is because they know if I keep pressing this button, you will react, and a lot of times you will react in an abusive way, then I get the high that I just controlled you, regardless of like whatever you do. Yeah, it's a reaction to the abuse. Like that's what I'm saying. It's a reaction, but I don't think that it's always. I don't think it always can be said as being self defense.
No. Yeah, because it isn't always like, yeah, it's not always you're tackling me and I'm gonna punch you to get you off of me. Like it's there's a massive like variation in how this can go down.
There's
But the thing that I was
like a
thinking, like,
thousand different things that we could use an example of it. Yeah.
yeah, because it's tailored to the person's
Mm-hmm.
triggers. So
100%.
you, I keep saying you and me, but like you could have
That's fine.
word salad and picking at me, and then Bree is sitting right next to me, and that's going to be a whole different, like whatever Bree's triggers are to get her to react. You know, like it's going to
Right.
be different for everybody.
And then I'm dog whistling to make a person react. Like yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
it's all encompassed. Like there's so many different things.
But the thing is, like, you gave the silent treatment example. And again, when you were talking about going silent treatment for 3 weeks, which
Mm-hmm.
I thankfully never experienced that long of a silent treatment, what do y'all think? Again, like when people are in like a POW camp and they
Mm-hmm.
put you alone in a, you know what I mean? Like they put you because they are like, this person at freak out in 3 weeks when nobody has come to check on them except to like leave them a scrap. Mentally done. This person's broken, completely
Right.
broken because it's a horrible, like we are humans and even the most introverted of us at least want to like have text from somebody once in a while, like being completely isolated from, and again, like the person who's supposed to love you has
Mm-hmm.
not said a word to you in 3 weeks. What
Mm-hmm.
are you supposed to think? Like what are you supposed to, are you just supposed to be okay with that?
Right.
How do you not talk to someone for 3 weeks, dude? Like you live
I
in the
was using
same
that as an
house?
example. I was using that as an example. I didn't do the
I'm
silent
like,
treatment.
how?
I didn't do the silent treatment. That was I know Lee did more of the silent treatment. I didn't do the silent treatment. That like to me it was a problem that needed to be fixed. So I would either fix it or I'd leave. Like silent treatment wasn't part of me. To me
I'm too extroverted.
it was more like there's a problem and I can't fix it, and the problem that I can't fix it is involving that there's shame that I caused that problem. So I either need to blame and rage to be able to get rid of the problem, or I need to get away from the problem and go find someone else, but
Yeah.
not deal with it. That's the main aspect.
Which, like, when you say that, because, like, I know there are, like, a lot of people who, you know, who talk about, like, how evil narcissists and are and stuff like that. But, like, when you say that, I just see, like, little baby inner child Ben, who's like, oh, and I can't get anything right. I'm going to go run and hide in my room. And then I'm like, damn
Mm-hmm.
it. Now I'm, like, you know what I mean? Like, then that's how you stick
I don't
around.
bring him out very
I,
often.
like,
I don't bring him out very often. Can't find him, so it's
he's,
fine.
he's
He's
really
still
tucked
hiding.
away in there. I saw him for a
He
second
is.
there.
He is. No, I mean it's crazy. Like we, because that's some of the stuff that I've worked even with my counselor, and like I know personally, like so I know with Lee, and I won't like share like a lot because he shared some stuff in confidence. I know there's certain areas that he can't go in his childhood. There's stuff with me that like I'm like, what childhood? Like I am here. Like I don't know how I got here, but I am here. And like thinking back, I had a moment like months ago with my therapist, and she was like, think about like a time when you're like younger, like think about like something like in the past kind of a thing, like imagine what you look like, imagine like a picture of you in one sense. And when I finally, it took me forever, I was like, when I finally figured out like a picture of me, like a younger version of me, I'm like, I don't know if that picture is real. I don't know if I remember that picture or I just remember a picture of me, or I don't know if that memory is actually real or it's just remembering what people have told me. And so
Yeah,
like trying to find that like underneath, whew, it's really hard.
I bet.
But yeah, no, there's a big aspect, and a lot of that is like vulnerability and stuff like that. Trauma brain.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is scary.
Oh no.
It was low power mode. Somebody asked earlier if it was like a struggle. Do you believe? Wait. Do you believe all unaware narcissists? Do you believe all unaware narcissists know they are the abuser? Mine seems so clueless. Hello, my hat. Um, so I think they know that they're being abusive because they're not doing it to everyone. So like they let
Mhm.
at the very here's my thought. At the very least unaware narcissist ever, they at least know that something's weird, something's off, and that they're not normal. And they also know that they have to be able to modify what they're doing depending on the people that they're around. And I forgot the other question I
Mhm.
was answering. But yeah, I'm broken because I loved him. What's wrong with me? So I would say nothing's wrong with you because that's one of your superpowers, loving someone. The hard thing is with loving someone that doesn't love you back and uses it to manipulate, it ends up being much more toxic and much more harmful to you.
And he passed away, so there's like you already probably won't get closure from a narcissist, but then if the abusive person dies, like you are left with no answers, like all questions, and you don't, like you said, you broke up a month before and then he died, like you're just like you didn't even really have time to start healing from that, and he died, which is like a huge like backslide of trying to figure out what life even is from that point.
But here's my question for you then. If you had to define closure, what is closure?
I don't believe in closure.
That's not what I asked. You have to define it first.
I
Then you
I
cannot believe it.
I know. I know. I guess it's like getting answers and understanding like what happened here. It's like wrapping it up and like putting it away.
Exactly.
Finishing this up, closing the chapter, however you want to talk about it, because a lot of times we feel like this book is still open, or this thing is still like loose ends, and we feel like
Mm-hmm.
we have to, like if we have a healthy relationship and we're just like, hey, I really want to move to Nebraska, and you're like, I don't. What's up? What is that? What are
It
you
looked
doing?
like the dog. Did you see the little
What
dog on
was
screen, or
that?
was that just on my side?
Yeah.
It looked like a little corgi that like
Were
farted
you
hearts
petting
or
it?
something. Yeah, I was trying to like pet it, and then it turned around and like mooned us and farted hearts at us. Literally, I don't know what just happened.
I was like
Totally,
talking, I was like, what's happening?
totally derailed that train
But
of thought.
yeah, like if you have a normal breakup,
Hmm.
you can be like, hey, I really like this has been great, we're going our separate ways, and then even though it's sad, even though you grieve for a while, maybe you choose to stay same, whatever, you're like, that's close, it's over, I understand this, you don't have cognitive dissonance, you're
Hmm.
not in a trauma bond, that person didn't block you or you didn't block them, like you're just like, good luck in your life. But with this,
Right.
you have to close that chapter yourself. You have to
Hmm.
wrap up those loose ends yourself. You have to be able to know that they're not going to give it to you, and to be able to say, like I always say, like their treatment of you is the closure that you need.
Hmm.
So just take that and
Yeah.
wrap it up
No,
yourself.
I think that's
You
good.
know,
I want to put you on the spot
it's
with that
like easier said than
because
done, but
I think you're right. I think you're right. Like one, you're never going to get closure from a narcissist, and two, that's not their job. They never respected you in the relationship. What makes you think they're going to respect you now? I think a lot of times when people think of closure, they think of the other person admitting what they did. Like they think of like some type of acknowledgement of like
mm,
I have closure that
mm-hmm.
they hate me because I look this way or because of this or because of, they're looking for an answer. And a lot of times you're not going to have an answer from a narcissist at all, but you're not going to even have a logical answer because it doesn't match the same level of logic that you're thinking. So a lot of times people are like, if I knew that he just didn't love me, or if I knew that they were a narcissist, then I could have closure. If I knew all this kind of stuff, the thing is, people are trying to tout the idea of like, I need to know something from the other person or acknowledge something to have closure. I like how you say it. Like you already have the closure. Like you have the closure by what they demonstrated, by how they lived their life. That's your closure. But it's people that, and honestly, and I'm not trying to say this to be rude to anybody, but honestly, a lot of times it's because it's an avoidance of truth. Of like the truth seems too painful that this other person didn't care about me. But the more that people are able to have even that radical acceptance of like understanding, like, hey, no, the truth of the matter is not what they said, but is how they demonstrated their love, respect, their honesty, their patience, their kindness. Like how they demonstrated that shows, were they actually, acting in a loving way? Were they demonstrating that? No. Then you can look back and you can say, like, hey, this person was not loving me. But I think a lot of times people want to run away from the truth
Honestly,
because
that.
it's a lot easier to do that.
Mm. Well, I think a lot of times when we think like if someone didn't love me, if someone didn't choose to pursue a relationship with me, or like I was with a narcissist, oh my God, this person didn't love me, even though like we had this roller coaster for however many years, it's about me.
Mm-hmm.
It's my part. There's something wrong with me. Because we all like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us have this fear of rejection or abandonment, and it's really painful. But for me, being able to say like, yeah, okay, it kind of hurt. Yeah, it hurts. Like when you're first like acknowledging it, but to be able to say, that person never cared about me. What do I have to be like? They never cared about me. So the confusion is gone. Like, am I still confused about some of the things they said or did? Sometimes I remember something and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, that's really weird. Again, like, how did I not see that at the time? But
Right.
knowing that and having that understanding of narcissism and how it works, closure, like it
Mm-hmm.
really helped me a lot. Like when that switch went off and I was like, oh, they didn't care
Right.
about me and that's why they behaved this way. It's not it because when you have that little like, well, they care about me, they're just not they care about me, they're just too traumatized, they can't get around to like whatever, then you're kind of stuck in it.
Yeah.
But knowing that they never cared, like as much as like some of y'all are probably going to be like, what, that's horrible, it's not horrible, it's freaking awesome, I'll take it because it helps to
Mm-hmm.
move on. It really does.
Yeah. All right. So they've commented like 10 million times. How did you react when you were told you had NPD? So it wasn't necessarily that I was told that I had NPD. Like my wife didn't confront me and like say like, oh, you're an awful person. She brought it up one time and said, which I turned around and gaslit her and had other people gaslight. But, when I was actually going to therapy, like I already knew the traits that I was having. It was already stuff that I like pursued and was actually like looking into. And so there's one of the reasons also why. How did you like comment? Oh, you're on. It's like, there's one of the reasons why, I was also, I can't believe what you're saying. It's one of the reasons why I was like looking
Sorry.
for a therapist, was like trying to figure out like, I think I have, narcissistic traits. And this is one of the things that I've been saying like recently, because I think we've done a disservice as Narc Talk by commenting and responding a lot of times when someone asks, am I the narcissist? A lot of times the immediate response has been, well, if you're asking, then you're not. Thank God no one in my life ever said that to me, because I would have not ever been here. Like I doubt any awareness would have even transpired even more if someone been like, well, if you're asking, then you're probably not. Same thing with Lee. No one told him that. His therapist was like, well, come on in, let's talk about it. You know, I went to a therapist. So part of the thing is like I figured out I was also like narcissistic because I already had an idea. I was learning stuff about it. I went to EMDR, and then I think it was sometime in between there that I went to like a sex addiction like intensive. And it was one of those things that like my wife and my boss, they like sent me to it, and because that's what they thought I had. And like I walked away from it with more clarity of like, okay, I'm not a sex addict, I'm a narcissist. I was like there's not much else that's on the table left for me to be able to identify with. And I even went, it was the second out of four therapists that I tried that actually like went through it was trying to peg me as like ADHD. And I'm like, no, I don't have ADHD. And I was like, I even like went through like the stuff and like even like looked at it DSM-5. Crazy part, I mean, is a whole nother story, but like crazy part is like she like in our fourth session, she tried to like gaslight me saying that I'd said yes to the ADHD, and I was like, no, we went through narcissism. It was like crazy. But then I went to my therapist, and I was like, I think I struggle with like narcissistic personality, and she was like, okay, well, like we don't need to label it, but we can go ahead and like start talking about it. And so like my therapist like came out at the very beginning, which I'll never forget it. Well, I'll never forget a couple things. So one of the first things is in the first like opening thing of like working with my counselor, my therapist, is I sat down first time ever, sat down and started talking, sharing some of my story. And in the middle of the appointment, never forget it. Don't even know what it was, but in the middle appointment, like I felt something. Like I didn't cry and I didn't get choked up, but there was like something there. It was kind of like some like almost like an emotional moment for a second. And as soon as it happened, I was like, holy cow, like this is the person I'm supposed to be seeing. And I was like, sold, like I'm here. And then it was probably like our second or third one or so, that she knew a little bit more about me. She knew like my faith, my beliefs, and stuff like that. And she told me up front, she was like, I'm committing to work with you to be able to help you through this, but just so you know, I'm also going to cheat with this, and I'm also going to ask God for help, and together we're going to work on this. And I think we've had some major breakthroughs combined with her information with God and also with like energy work and like I mean you name it. Like she literally dabbles in everything. That's why I call her like crazy. She's my crazy therapist. But like it works. We get to a place where we hit a stone wall and then we kind of work through as, another way. And it's been crazy. I think the energy work and like the muscle response therapy, like that stuff's like wild. Like I'm kind of like, but it's revealing. It's weird.
Mm.
I'm probably gonna get off here in a couple minutes because my phone's gonna die.
Yeah, I like was messaging the kid's dad, like, is the kid okay? Because I've been in here for a while. I'm like, where's my kid?
I guess it's what you're 3 hours difference, right?
I'm 3 hours behind you. So I don't know which side of the time zone argument you're on, but I'm on that one. Yeah, it's
If
7:30.
you'd be behind me, then it'd be like 1:30 in the morning. So you're actually ahead because you're experiencing that ahead of me.
I can't. Don't gaslight me.
You're experiencing that time.
Oh
Anyways,
man.
it's super hilarious.
I don't know. My brain doesn't do anything with numbers, so actually you might be right and I wouldn't know.
I watch too much sci-fi. Time is wibbly wobbly.
I do believe
Anyways,
that.
anyways, we'll probably just wrap it up here. Y'all have been great, and a lot of people ask questions, and we probably talked to a couple of them. But how does my wife deal with narcissism? Stay tuned to our new podcast coming out on Monday. Trauma, Drama, and Life is the name of it. Airing first episode at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, where we start talking about our trauma, drama, and life. We kind of joke that
I'm
she's
super
she's
curious about
she's
this
she's
because
dealt with the trauma, I'm the drama, and then Sophia's the life. So
am I the drama? Oh no. Yeah, I'm super excited about it because it's not like I know Lee's wife has done some stuff, but like for people, like for survivors to have her, contributing to this like while she's in it, because most of us are like, we're survivors, we got the hell out of there. And she's like, hi
right.
everybody, I'm here. This is what we're doing. Here's the trauma and the drama. It's gonna be good.
I want
I'm
to say
excited.
the third episode we talk about like trauma bond, because people are asking like is she still trauma bonded and stuff like that. The second episode we were going to talk about that, but then we got on the sidetrack with counseling, as far as like don't go to counseling like with a narcissist
Mm,
and stuff like that. That was a whole rigmarole of us sharing our experiences of going to counselors, and especially Christian counselors that I don't recommend if you're with a narcissist going to either one. They'll mess you up. But yeah.
yeah, I don't recommend that either.
Yeah,
Ugh.
it's crazy. Anyways, thank you all so much for being here. Really do appreciate it. So we've got coming up September 24th. We've got the workshop coming up in Virginia Beach, Virginia, in person with myself and Lee Hammock. Would love to be able to have you be able to come and check that out. It's going to be to help work on healing narcissistic abuse recovery. Is going to be the name of the workshop. You can get my link in the bio. narcavengers.com to be able to see the events coming up here in Austin, Texas. So Lindsay's going to be hanging out with us there too. So super excited about that. That's October 15th. We won't be there, but they'll be in Toronto on November 19th. So be able to mark that in calendars. But you can find all that information on narcavengers.com. If you haven't had a chance to download the Narc app, please check it out. Just type in narcapp.com, NARCAPP at.com. Just kidding, narcapp.com. But anyways, check it out. Thank you all so much for being here. Appreciate it. And y'all have a great night. Cool.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Yeah.